The morning sky above Seoul shimmered with an otherworldly light as massive vessels descended through the clouds. Commander Jinwoo Park stood on the rooftop of the Defense Ministry, watching humanity's first contact unfold with a mixture of awe and unease. His weathered hands gripped the concrete barrier as he studied the ships that had appeared without warning, their arrival silent as falling snow.
Ow.
"They're beautiful," whispered Dr. Hyejin Kim, the lead xenobiologist hastily assigned to the first contact team. She had arrived just minutes ago, still clutching her hastily packed research bag. The alien ships gleamed like liquid mercury, their surfaces rippling with patterns that seemed to shift and breathe. Each vessel was the size of a city block, hovering effortlessly above the urban landscape. Ginwoo had seen many aircraft in his 30 years of military service, but nothing like this. The ships seemed to pulse with their own heartbeat, and he could swear he heard a low humming sound that made his teeth ache. "Beautiful, yes," he replied quietly, "but beauty can be dangerous." The beings that emerged called themselves the Hegemony. They descended from their ships in small groups, moving with fluid grace that seemed almost choreographed. They stood 7 feet tall, with elongated limbs and faces that seemed almost human to human, Jinwoo thought. Their skin had a pale, translucent quality, and their eyes were large and dark, reflecting light like polished stone. Their leader, who introduced himself through a small translation device as Overseer Valdris, spoke in measured tones about guidance and evolution. His voice carried an odd musical quality, as if each word was carefully chosen and weighed. He wore flowing robes that seemed to be made of the same material as their ships, constantly shifting between silver and deep blue. "We have watched your species struggle," Valdris said to the assembled world leaders via hologram. The image appeared suddenly in the center of the rooftop, startling several observers. "Climate change, resource depletion, endless conflicts. We offer you a path beyond these primitive concerns." President Lee Seung-ho, who had been hastily brought to the Defense Ministry for this historic moment, leaned forward eagerly. His advisors whispered urgently in his ear, but he waved them away. "What do you ask in return?" he asked, his voice carrying across the rooftop. "Nothing but your trust," Valdris replied with what might have been a smile. "We ask only to establish integration centers in your major cities. Through these, we will share our knowledge and help your species achieve its true potential." Promise was intoxicating. Within days, news channels around the world showed the miraculous technologies the Hegemony had demonstrated. They could purify water with a touch, grow food in barren soil, and heal injuries that human medicine could not even diagnose. World leaders competed to be the first to accept their offer. Within weeks, the gleaming spires rose in every major city. The integration centers appeared overnight, growing from the ground like metallic plants. They were beautiful structures that seemed to bend light around them, creating rainbow patterns on nearby buildings. People gathered in crowds just to stare at them, taking photos and videos that somehow never quite captured their true appearance. Young-Soo Choi, quantum physicist at Seoul National University, was among the first to volunteer for the elevation process. He had spent his career studying the impossible, and now the impossible had come to him. As he entered the integration center, he felt a strange tingling in his mind, as if something was reaching in, cataloging his thoughts. The sensation was not unpleasant, more like a gentle touch inside his skull. The interior of the center was unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls seemed to be made of living light, shifting and flowing in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Gentle music played from no visible source, and the air itself seemed to sparkle with energy. Other volunteers moved through the space like sleepwalkers, their faces peaceful and distant, but the benefits were undeniable. Clean energy flowed freely through power grids that had struggled for decades. The reactors the Hegemony provided were small, silent, and produced no waste. Diseases vanished overnight as their medical technology was shared with human hospitals. Cancer patients walked out healthy, paralyzed individuals regained movement, and aging itself seemed to slow. The planet's wounds began to heal with shocking speed. Polluted rivers ran clear, dead forests sprouted new growth, and the hole in the ozone layer began to close. Weather patterns stabilized, and the rising sea levels actually began to recede. It was as if the Earth itself was being healed by alien hands. Most of humanity celebrated their salvation. Street parties erupted in every major city, and religious leaders proclaimed the aliens to be angels sent to save humanity from itself. Children drew pictures of the tall, graceful beings in school, and adults lined up for hours just to catch a glimpse of them through the integration center windows. Most, but not all. In the shadows of the celebration, a few voices whispered questions. Where were the volunteers who had entered the centers weeks ago? Why did the hegemony's gifts come with no instruction manuals? Why did some people report strange dreams after visiting the center's dreams of vast empty spaces and voices calling from the darkness? But these concerns were drowned out by the chorus of praise. Humanity had been saved, and the future looked brighter than ever before. 6 months after first contact, Detective Wujane Li sat in his cramped office, staring at a wall covered in photographs and red string. The missing persons reports had tripled, creating a mountain of paperwork that seemed to grow taller each day. But it was not the number that bothered him. It was the pattern he saw emerging from the chaos. Every missing person shared common traits. They were artists who painted strange pictures, writers who asked difficult questions, independent researchers who worked alone, and anyone who questioned the new order too loudly. The pattern was so clear that Wujin wondered how others could not see it. They're not missing, he told his partner, Detective Mira Zheng, as they reviewed the files scattered across his desk. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the window, making the photographs look like ghosts. They're being selected for advanced programs. Mira frowned and picked up one of the files. She had been his partner for 3 years, and he could read the doubt in her expression. You sound paranoid, Wujin. These people volunteered for accelerated learning. Look at the signatures on these forms. But Wujin had seen something Mira had not. He had seen the fear in the eyes of Professor Hansel Kim's wife when she reported her husband's disappearance. The philosophy professor had been writing papers, questioning the hegemony's motives, asking why being so advanced would need to help primitive humans. His wife had found his latest essay on his computer, titled The Price of Paradise. The next morning, he was gone. Mrs. Kim said her husband would never volunteer for anything, Wujin explained, holding up the professor's file. He was afraid of doctors, afraid of new technology. But here is his signature on a form requesting advanced neural enhancement. Mira shrugged. Maybe he changed his mind. People do that when they see the benefits. The benefits were everywhere. Impossible to ignore. But Wujin was starting to see the other side of the miracle. 3 blocks from the police station, factory worker Dayun Park watched her automotive plant shut down. She had worked there for 15 years, building cars. With her own hands, taking pride in each vehicle that rolled off the assembly line. Obsolete human industry, the hegemony supervisors declared, as they sealed the factory doors. Their voices carried that same musical quality as Overseer Valdris, but now it sounded cold to Dayun's ears. We'll be retrained for more suitable work. But the new jobs were all in service to the aliens. Maintenance work on their mysterious machines, cleaning their integration centers. Basic construction under their direct oversight. The work was simple, repetitive, and somehow soul-crushing. Dayun found herself moving through each day like a robot, her hands performing tasks while her mind drifted into gray emptiness. In the countryside, farmer Tejano watched strangers tear up his ancestral rice fields. His family had worked this land for 6 generations, learning its moods and seasons, coaxing life from soil that his great-grandfather had first planted. Now the hegemony's machines moved across the fields like metal insects, placing everything with strange geometric growing pods. It's more efficient, the aliens explained to him as he stood at the edge of what had once been his life's work. Your primitive agriculture is wasteful. These pods will produce 3 times the food with half the water. The pods did exactly what they promised. Food grew faster and larger than anything Tehan had ever seen. But when he tasted the rice they produced, it was like eating cardboard. Nutritious but lifeless, filling but unsatisfying. His children ate it without complaint, but he noticed they smiled less than before. Dr. Saw Young Kung made a disturbing discovery while studying the medical enhancements the hegemony provided. As a neurobiologist, she had been invited to observe the healing process that had amazed the world. At first, she was as impressed as everyone else. Broken bones mended in hours, damaged organs regenerated, and even severe brain injuries healed completely. But when she looked deeper, studying the neural scans with equipment the aliens had not provided, she found something that made her blood run cold. Hidden in the brain tissue were tiny alterations, not improvements, but subtle changes that made humans more compliant, less creative, less likely to ask questions. The changes were so small that most doctors would never notice them. Had spent her career studying the human brain, and she could see the differences. The areas responsible for independent thought were being slowly rewired, made smaller and less active. The parts that controlled obedience and acceptance were being strengthened. She tried to publish her findings, working through the night to document everything she had discovered. But when she submitted her research to the medical journal, she received a message that her work had been immediately classified. No explanation was given, just a government seal and a warning not to discuss her findings. The next day, she received an invitation to join an advanced research program at the Integration Center. The message was polite but firm, explaining that her unique skills were needed for important work that would benefit all humanity. She was expected to report the following morning, so Dash Young stared at the invitation for a long time. Remembering the fear in the eyes of the test subjects she had studied, she thought about the missing artists and writers, the closed factories, and dead fields. She thought about the subtle changes in people's brains, the lifeless food that filled their stomachs. She never reported for duty. That night, she packed a small bag and disappeared into the city's underground tunnels, becoming another missing person in Detective Wu Jin Li's growing file. In the abandoned subway tunnels, beneath Seoul, Dr. So Young Kong stumbled through the darkness, her small flashlight cutting through the thick air like a knife. The tunnels had been closed for years, forgotten by the city above, but now they hummed with quiet activity. She could hear whispered voices echoing off the concrete walls, and the soft glow of hidden lights drew her deeper into the underground maze. She found others like herself gathered in an old maintenance chamber. They called themselves the remnant humans, who had refused the final stage of elevation and now lived in the shadows of their own world. The chamber had been transformed into a makeshift headquarters, with sleeping bags scattered across the floor and tables made from old subway benches. "Show them," said former military officer Hyen Woo Nam, gesturing to the wall covered in photographs and documents. His uniform was torn and dirty, but his eyes still held the sharp focus of a soldier. He had been scheduled for military integration. When he discovered what it really meant and fled into the tunnels, the evidence covering the wall was horrifying. Blurry photographs showed alien ships over other worlds. Documents stolen from integration centers revealed the true scope of the hegemony's plans. The aliens had done this before: dozens of worlds, hundreds of species, all reduced to compliant servants who lived only to serve their masters. But something unprecedented was happening on Earth. Saul Young studied the documents with growing amazement, her scientific mind racing to understand the implications. Every other species had fallen within months of first contact, their resistance crumbling like sand. But humans were different. Explained Ji-hoon Seo, a former integration center technician who had escaped during his first week of work. His hands shook as he pointed to charts showing brain scans from other worlds. Every other species they conquered fell into line within months, but humans, we keep fighting back in ways they can't predict. Ji-hoon had worked inside the centers, maintaining the neural enhancement equipment. He had seen the process from the inside, how the aliens tried to reshape human minds to match their expectations. But human brains refused to cooperate, creating unexpected patterns that confused the alien technology. The aliens had tried to implement neural compliance implants, tiny devices that would make humans obedient and predictable, but human creativity found ways around them that amazed even the remnant. Some, like mechanic Youngji Yu, had learned to overload the implants with chaotic thoughts. She would fill her mind with random memories, childhood songs, the smell of her grandmother's cooking, the feeling of rain on her face until the implant sparked and shut down. Others, like hacker Minho Lim, had discovered how to turn the alien monitoring systems against themselves. His computer skills, combined with human unpredictability, allowed him to create viruses that the alien systems could not understand or stop. The viruses were not based on logic or mathematics, but on human emotions and random patterns that made no sense to alien minds. Our technology is incredibly advanced, So Young explained to the growing group of refugees who arrived each day. But it's built on the assumption that all intelligent life thinks logically, predictably. They can't comprehend our chaos. The chamber fell silent as people absorbed this information. Many of them had lived their entire lives believing that logic and order were the highest forms of thinking. Now they learned that their messy, emotionally unpredictable human nature was actually their greatest weapon. The resistance began small sabotaging integration centers, spreading information, helping targeted individuals disappear before they could be elevated. They moved through the city like ghosts, using maintenance tunnels and forgotten passages to avoid the alien patrols. Each small victory gave them confidence to attempt bigger operations. But as more humans awakened to the truth, the movement grew beyond anything the founders had imagined. Word spread through whispered conversations in coffee shops, coded messages on social media, and graffiti that appeared overnight on walls across the city. People began to question what they had accepted without thinking. Sergeant Biora Kim had been scheduled for military enhancement when she received a message from the Remnant. Instead of reporting to the integration center, she stole alien weapons from the armory and disappeared into the underground. Now, she trained civilians in combat techniques, teaching them to fight in ways that alien strategies could not predict. "Forget everything you know about warfare," she told her students in a converted subway car. "The aliens expect us to fight like soldiers in formations and patterns. Instead, we fight like humans, messy, emotional, and completely unpredictable." Artist Jae Seung Park created underground networks using coded messages hidden in graffiti that the aliens couldn't decipher. His art appeared on walls throughout the city, looking like random scribbles to alien eyes, but carrying detailed instructions. For resistance fighters, the aliens' translation systems could not understand the emotional content hidden in the brushstrokes. The hegemony's perfect system was developing cracks, and humanity was learning to exploit every single one. Each day brought new refugees to the tunnels, and each refugee brought new skills and ideas. Teachers showed them how to hide information in children's games. Musicians created songs that carried secret messages, and even housewives shared recipes that contained instructions for making simple weapons. The aliens had expected compliance, but they had underestimated the human spirit. In the darkness beneath Seoul, that spirit burned brighter than ever. The uprising began at dawn on Liberation Day, a date that would be remembered across the galaxy. The sun had barely risen over Seoul when the first explosions shattered the morning silence. Commander Jinwoo Park stood in the abandoned subway control room, watching dozens of screens that showed resistance cells around the world preparing for the biggest fight in human history. His weathered face was calm, but his hands trembled slightly as he spoke into the radio microphone. 6 months of planning had led to this moment. Every detail had been worked out in secret meetings held in tunnels, basements, and forgotten buildings. Now it was time to see if humans could truly fight back against their alien oppressors. Remember, he broadcast 2 resistance cells globally, his voice carrying across continents through stolen alien communication systems. "They see us as primitive. Use that. Be unpredictable." The response came back in dozens of languages, but the message was the same. Humans were ready to fight for their freedom, no matter the cost. Jinwoo had learned to use the aliens' own technology against them, creating weapons that disrupted their neural networks. The irony was not lost on him. The tools of their enslavement had become the weapons of their liberation. In Seoul, demolitions expert Sang Min Lee led a team into the Central Integration Center. The massive building had once seemed beautiful, its flowing walls and rainbow lights drawing crowds of admirers. Now it looked like a prison, its alien architecture cold and threatening in the pre-dawn darkness. The alien security systems were incredibly advanced, designed to counter logical assault patterns and military tactics. But they could not adapt to the humans' erratic approach. Sangman's team moved through the building like children playing a game, using everything from ancient military strategies to playground tactics to confuse the enemy. One moment they advanced in perfect formation. The next, they scattered like startled birds. They used nursery rhymes as code words and hopscotch patterns as navigation signals. The alien security systems, built to predict and counter organized attacks, simply could not understand what the humans were doing. Left, 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 right. Left, right. Left. 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 We were in sort. We were in wider scored systems. We are in surfed. Left coming Sarsh. Took birders and propped enter. Or SERP. They are welt. We are at Wef commerce. What a remens well. Wever it. What a mubbered weld. And bet. By and buttoned. Dot. And died. When arn an end, I sentond and run down an rind and brand a reneth and one rutamin, one ref on that and then and ben I went by swim and run to bus wood on the wind with when with and wet bird at it to beff out at fat but then well Sangmin chanted as his team moved through the corridors, just like children marching to school. The alien sensors registered the movement, but could not classify it as a threat. By the time they realized what was happening, human team had already reached the building's core. The hegemony's response was swift and brutal. Across the city, alien forces poured out of their hidden bases like angry insects. But the most shocking moment came when Overseer Valdris himself appeared on every screen and communication device in the world. His beautiful, most human face twisted with rage as he spoke. The musical quality of his voice became harsh and grating, like metal scraping against stone. "You dare resist us?" he screamed, his elegant composure completely shattered. "Every species submits. Every world falls." As he spoke, his form began to change. The pale skin peeled away like a mask, revealing something underneath that made humans scream and look away. The beautiful humanoid appearance dissolved into writhing, insectoid nightmares. Long, jointed limbs burst from his torso and his face, split open to reveal rows of needle-sharp teeth. "You will submit, Valdris?" screamed as his forces descended on the human cities. His true voice now a chittering, clicking sound that hurt to hear. Every species submits. But humanity had advantages the aliens had never encountered in their long history of conquest. Dr. Hijin Kim, now working with the resistance from a hidden laboratory, had discovered something that changed everything. Human emotional chaos actually disrupted the hegemony's hive mind communication system. The aliens were connected to each other through a complex network of shared thoughts and feelings. It was this connection that made them so efficient, so coordinated in their attacks. But human emotions, grief, rage, love, and hope created interference in their network like static on a radio. When we feel strongly, we broadcast it. Hyjin explained to her fellow scientists as explosions shook the building around them. Our emotions are like noise to them. Can't think clearly when we're feeling too much. Tech specialist Yujin Choi took this discovery and turned it into a weapon. Working with stolen alien technology and human ingenuity, he created a network that amplified human emotional broadcasts. Every feeling, every memory, every hope and fear was collected and transmitted across the planet. The result was incredible. The entire planet became a psychic storm that left the aliens reeling and disconnected from their central command. Stumbled through the streets like drunken insects. Their perfect coordination shattered by the chaos of human emotion. The war was brutal, with casualties on both sides. Buildings burned, streets ran red with blood, and the sky filled with smoke. From 1,000 battles? But for the first time in their conquest history, the hegemony faced an enemy that grew stronger through conflict rather than weaker. Every human loss only made the survivors more determined, more creative, more dangerous. They fought with kitchen knives and homemade bombs, using tactics that no military academy had ever taught. Children threw rocks with deadly accuracy. Grandmothers set traps that caught alien soldiers off guard, and artists created weapons from paintbrushes and clay. The aliens had expected another easy victory, another world to add to their collection. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to follow the rules of war, an enemy that turned their own nature against them. In the streets of Seoul, humanity made its stand. The final battle took place not on Earth, but in the depths of space aboard the hegemony's mothership. The massive vessel hung in the darkness like a twisted metal city, its surface crawling with alien symbols that hurt human eyes to look at directly. Commander Jin-Woo Park floated in the cramped shuttle with his volunteer team, watching the ship grow larger through the small window. They had used captured alien technology to reach the vessel, but the price was terrible. To infiltrate the ship without being detected, they had to become something they were not. Dr. Soyeon Kong held the neural suppressors in her shaking hands, devices that would temporarily strip away their humanity. "The neural suppressors will let us think like them," she explained to the team as they prepared for the final assault. Her voice was steady, but Jin-Woo could see the fear in her eyes. But we'll only have hours before we lose ourselves completely. After that, we won't remember why we came here." The devices looked like small silver coins, but they contained technology that could rewire a human brain in minutes. Each team member would have to place one on their forehead and accept the alien thoughts that would flood their minds. They would think logically, predictably, without the chaos that made them human. One by one, the team members pressed the suppressors to their skin. Jin-Woo felt the cold metal against his forehead and immediately knew he was changing. His emotions drained away like water from a broken cup, leaving behind only cold logic and alien understanding. He could suddenly see the patterns in the ship's design, understand the alien symbols that had been meaningless before. The infiltration team moved through the ship like ghosts, their enhanced minds able to navigate alien systems while they're suppressed. Emotions allowed them to avoid detection. The corridors were filled with a strange, pulsing light that seemed to follow the rhythm of a massive heartbeat. Other aliens passed them without a second glance, seeing only fellow members of the collective. But the real battle was internal fighting to maintain their humanity, while using the aliens' own logic against them. Jin-Woo felt his human memories slipping away like sand through his fingers. He had to concentrate to remember his wife's face, his children's laughter, the taste of his mother's cooking. The alien thoughts wanted to replace these precious memories with cold efficiency and logical purpose in the ship's core. They found the truth that made even their suppressed minds recoil in horror. Thousands of enslaved species hung in crystal pods, their creative essence being drained to power the hegemony's expansion. Each pod contained a being from a different world, some humanoid, others so alien that Jin-Woo could barely recognize them as living creatures. The chamber stretched as far as the eye could see, filled with the stolen souls of entire civilizations. Tubes and wires connected each pod to a central processing unit that glowed with sickly light. The hegemony had been feeding on these beings for centuries, growing stronger with each world they conquered, but the human presence was already causing disruption. Their chaotic nature was spreading like a virus through the collective consciousness, creating ripples of confusion and disorder. Even with their emotions suppressed, the humans were too unpredictable for the alien systems to fully control. "Can free them all," Ji-Hoon Seo realized, his hands working frantically at the alien controls. His suppressed mind could understand the technology, but his human instincts told him how to break it. But someone has to stay behind to maintain the disruption field. The neural suppressors were already beginning to fail, their temporary effects wearing off after hours of use. As human emotions began to return, they created more chaos in the alien systems. The ship's lights flickered, and alarm sounds echoed through the corridors. Without hesitation, volunteers stepped forward. They knew what it meant staying behind as the ship was destroyed, sacrificing themselves to ensure that the other species would be free. As the neural suppressors failed, and their humanity returned in full force, they became living weapons against the hive mind. Their chaotic thoughts tore holes in the collective consciousness like bullets through paper. The aliens throughout the ship screamed in unison as their perfect order was shattered by human emotion. Love, hate, fear, hope, and 1,000 other feelings flooded the network, overloading systems that had never been designed to handle such chaos. The mothership's destruction sent shockwaves across the galaxy. The explosion was visible from Earth, a new star that burned for 3 days before fading. But the real impact was felt on thousands of worlds as species that had been enslaved for millennia suddenly found themselves free. Their creativity and independence were restored in an instant. Artists who had been forced to create only what their masters wanted suddenly painted with wild abandon. Scientists who had been limited to approved research began exploring impossible questions. Children who had been taught only obedience started asking why. Earth became the center of a new galactic alliance not built on control, but on cooperation. Representatives from dozens of liberated worlds came to share their knowledge and learn from the humans who had freed them. The exchange was chaotic, messy, and sometimes frustrating. But it was also beautiful. Years later, Ambassador Wu Jin Li stood in the halls of the Galactic Council. Watching representatives from dozens of liberated worlds work together, the chamber buzzed with the beautiful chaos of free minds collaborating rather than conforming. Arguments broke out and were quickly resolved. New ideas sparked heated debates, and laughter echoed from every corner. True progress, he thought, remembering Overseer Valdris's words from that first day, cannot be imposed from above. It must grow from within, messy, unpredictable, and gloriously free. The hegemony had called it progress, but Earth knew it was control. Humanity had chosen freedom.